Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rooted Horror Podcast live on YouTube. I'm your host, Marcus, and today we're going to be doing like a cultural exchange of the horror genre, where I'll be talking to uh, several people around the world, including Clara Kovacic, who's been on here before, um, and then
Yeah.
also, hey, Clara.
Hi.
And a couple new people to the podcast. Alex Peña from Mexico.
Yep.
And then Adrian Deschamps from Argentina. And then joining us shortly, Christian Bachini will be showing up from Italy very soon. But just want to say thank you all for showing up and taking time to coming on here and talking about the horror genre.
It's a pleasure. Always.
So Alex, did I get the pronunciation of your name right? I wasn't sure what.
No.
No.
No problem. It's just like Michael Peña.
Peña.
I am Alex Peña. Yeah, Peña.
Okay, all right. Sorry for the
No
for
worries.
messing. But yeah, so I'm from the United States, and then Clara and Adrian are from Argentina, and then Alex from Mexico, Christian from Italy. What would be like something that you would consider, like from like a cultural aspect? Like what do you get out of the horror genre that would maybe like fit like your cultural backgrounds? And then I don't know who would want to start that question. But
I think.
Yeah, claro.
¿Qué vas vos, Adri, o yo?
Bueno, voy yo. Vale, bueno, andando.
Okay, I think that the horror genre is a quite universal genre. I think that it always goes to the horror that we feel as a human being on this earth in a certain culture, but it's always something like a, how do you say inconsciente colectivo, Adri?
The collective unconscious? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
I know
something
you
like
know
that.
that term, but there is like some sort of sense that we are all like have an unconscious self connected to each other, and we have like primal fears that are inside all of us. And I think that there is a sort of catharsis that is done in the horror genre that it may have like a common language in all the cultures. Like I watch a lot of films that have a lot to do with the relationship mother-daughter, of mother and children, or a relationship of a family, and how maybe it's broken and how they confront the pain of loss. And those are subjects that are maybe sometimes they are all the way put on top of the script, or maybe it's a subtext that is behind the film of monsters, or monsters are metaphors of other things. Like for example, here in our culture, we have a lot of monsters, but I think they represent things that are a way to cope with reality. So we create those monsters to cope with certain things that are too hard for us, maybe to cope with, like with a sense of just dryness of reality and all of its darkness. I think that it's a way to come out with all this and a sort of exercise. How do you say exorcizar?
Exorcise, yeah.
exercise. Yeah.
Our deepest fears and our deepest
Inner demons.
Yeah, inner demons. But I think we all have them, even though we are in different cultures. You can have like a sense of a common story in each monster that maybe changes the name, but it's the same monster in different cultures with a different name. So it's a primal fear that we have that is represented. So that's why I believe that the horror genre tells stories that have an universal language for all of us to like grab it, and that's why I believe it's such an universal also consumption area, because I watch films that I have no idea which language they are speaking, not because I care about the language, but I care about the stories. There's something that my soul takes of these stories, and that it's something that I don't crush, even though it's a different culture or different language. I take this story and I consume it with a sort of powerful catharsis then that it's done. So that's why I love horror films. And the more I get to know different horror films of different parts of the world, the more I get that the fears are pretty much the same in every culture.
Well said. Well said.
And I'm out, I'm leaving, and I'm never coming back and speaking here again. That was it.
All right. Thank you for your time, Clara. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to like say something as far as like, I don't know if I'm just saying from a United States citizen standpoint or anything, but like I feel like, when I watch other cultural films from around the world, I like to watch films from all different kinds of countries because it kind of gives me a sense of escaping my own reality and seeing how other cultures are than what I'm used to watching or seeing here. Um, like the English language, for the most part, is what most Americans speak. Depends on the parts of the United States. More northern would be towards Canada, where French speaking is, very, I wouldn't say popular, but there's a lot of French people that speak in Canada. Um, and then more south of America would be more or less like Spanish speaking, but for the most part, like for me, watching horror films and then watching different uh, countries or watching horror movies from different countries, I like looking at the different cultures and trying to understand, where their view is at with whatever the subject matter is. And I think that would be like the biggest thing that I find most interesting. Um,
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, I
you know,
also what I love about horror films, but genre films in general, is that they reflect cultural aspects and cultural and social problems that affects those culture in particular. I was watching horror films from Malaysia and Thailand, and that's they have a tradition of horror folk there, and the thing is, in that culture, they believe in all that. So it's not the same
Mm.
when you are doing a film about, demons in a culture that they don't believe in demons. It's just maybe entertainment. But in this case, we are talking about a culture that believes in all these witchcraft legend, witchcraft traditions. So you can feel the difference because this is not something that people, I mean, they're okay. We are going to do this film to entertain. No, people really believe that, and that's for me, it's a doorway to that culture. Actually, thanks to this film, I start talking with the director, with fans of the movie that recommend me other films. I always do that. I always use the films to enter that culture, but not only to get information of that country, of that culture, of that particular issue the movie is dealing with, but I started with people there, like I did, for example, with the Danish movie Speak No Evil, where I talked with a lot of Danish people who explained me the thing about a very particular detail about Danish culture that apparently there is this idea of them being excessively polite, right? And in this case, we see the consequence, in a horror film, right? Because if you see the previous film of the director, Thudrop, I think is the name of the director, that is called, it's a drama called A Horrible Woman. It's not a thriller or a horror film, but it deals with the same problem. It's a toxic relationship between a submissive man and a woman who practically controls him, in a very toxic way. So we see this guy taking all this shit of this from this woman, right? So it's interesting because in his next films he approached the same subject, but he pushed it to the limit until it became a horror film, and for me that was wonderful.
Nice, nice. Alex, could you add anything with the discussion about just the different cultures of the horror genre?
Yeah, I'd love to. I actually love what Clara and Adrian said. I think horror. I think that even like more than just being a genre, it is a language, where a universal language, and I agree. I totally agree with that. Um, Talking culturally, like from Mexican point of view, I can see that the past few years, Mexico and the USA are very, very much connected, and American culture affects Mexico in a lot of ways. Uh, Mostly um, medium class and upper class, because we consume more of American content than lower classes, and that's something that we should study, because it affects the way people want to live their lives. It affects the way they see themselves. It affects the way of what they desire and what they fear also. And the fears changes. The upper classes fear different things that lower classes in our country. And like Adrian was saying, it's very important to understand. Maybe it's easier to find lower class people believing in demons and in ghosts and in possessions and in this supernatural stuff, which could be real or could not be. But on the other hand, like upper classes, which have the chance to study science or whatever, and they tend to find themselves not believing. They're just disbelievers of most of that stuff. But in the end, like fear is the same for everyone. We don't fear the same things, but fear works the same in everybody. And that's very interesting, because when we see films, like Adrian said, uh, human human beings are more terrible than those ghosts. But also the ghosts and the creatures represent, like Clara said, the um, metaphors of our own inner demons, of our own problems, our darkness, right? So I think that Mexican cinema, Mexican television right now is mirroring a big, big problem, that we're not a country. We're really, really split in half, and that's terrible. That's it's crazy, because it seems like we have two countries, and I think you could see that happening a lot in the USA, right, Marcus? Like Democrats against Republicans, and it's so divided, so like,
Oh yeah.
and and the problem with that is like fears become real in a way. Like we fear terrorism, right? It's a thing, but we
Oh
don't
yeah.
understand it. We just fear it. And we could talk about other kinds of fears, right? Like right now, our generations, we're so scared of, we don't even know if we have a future in this world. Most kids that are like 15, 20 right now, they're so scared of not believing they will have a future, maybe because of droughts, maybe because of world
Climate change.
climate change. Thank you. So there are so many things going on, and I think like Don't Look Up. That's a comedy, but it's a horror film. It's a psychological horror film, because when you watch it, like everybody's ha ha ha, this is so stupid. How can they be so stupid? Ha 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 ha. But when the film ends, you're like, what the fuck? And the problem is, well, I mean, not the problem, but like the great thing about the movie is like anyone can relate to that, because it's the fear of disappearing as a whole species, and that's amazing. And everybody lives through it and experiences it in a different way, but in the end, we are all scared of that idea, and that's a great mirror of society, because most we can see that a huge lot of projects right now are post-apocalyptic films, post-apocalyptic TV series, and that reflects a lot of what the world views itself in a few years or in 100 years, right? Like we don't have this bright Jetson future where technology saves us and we're so happy together. Most future views of the world are like, oh, we're fucked, man, and we're gonna have to struggle with like not working technology, or like not having enough money, not having enough resources, having to fight between each other to get food, to get water, to get resources to survive. Like I think we're going back in time into a moment where we're afraid of not having enough resources, when at the same time we right now are living the moment where there are more resources in our world than ever in our entire species existence. So it's crazy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You know, Mark,
Go
what
ahead.
you're saying, Alex, it's really interesting. I believe that fears are usually the same for every culture, but I know that there are some fears that are with us since the moment we are born, and it's the same like right now from I don't know, 300 years back in time. Those are same fears that are in us as human beings: fear of death, fear of losing someone we love. But there are also new fears that I think that are part of the evolution of the human race that are present, and those are fears that are now present in some films. Like for example, the other day I was watching Kurosawa's film Kairo. I don't know if you've
Mm.
watched it, if you've seen it. It's a terrifying film, but it's about technology and loneliness, and it's about ghosts, but in the most cruel aspect of Japanese horror. I'm talking about cruel Japanese horror, one of the harshest horror that I've watched, because it's like a I know here it's present the culture when we talk about watching certain fears. I think that the way they are told, it depends on the culture. Maybe it's the same fear that we fear. For example, fairies stealing our kids. That fear is something that is present in every culture, and there is a monster in every culture in the past of that culture, of a fairy or of a coconudo or
yeah,
a chorona that comes through and steals your baby. Even films like, I don't know, the Japanese films about the yurei are the name of the ghost that steal kids. And I think that it's the same fear about a parent losing their kids, but it's different how it's told in different culture, because the way the culture speaks, the language of the film, will be the language of that culture. So, whoa.
Yo.
Yo.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi. So I that what I'm
Hey,
saying is
Christian,
that
thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. Sorry if I'm late. Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead. Finish saying what you were saying. I don't want to interrupt you guys.
Dale, re, tranqui. What I'm saying is that, for example, this film Cairo, it's like a new approach to horror with the amount of the technology that we are using. That I think that the Japanese civilization like had a very intense subject with focus with technology in the anime or the films that are released like in the 90s. Like we are watching Evangelion,
hmm
Serial Experiment Lane. They are all stories, horror stories that are based on the interaction between human beings and technology. Even though cyberpunk anticipated it, I think in the 90s there is like a Japanese boom of horror that it's connecting human beings with technology. And Kaido is one of these films that has technology. And do you want to be friends with a ghost? The amount of loneliness that people feel is present in the film. And what are you I think that there's a message about loneliness in a lot of Japanese films, that I think it's an expression that maybe it's so good to watch, because I think nowadays with technology sometimes we feel more alienated. And that is something that I watched in 2001. of one culture that was analyzing the aspect of human beings, technology, and loneliness, and how would you interact with supernatural things but with that kind of extreme loneliness. But I think that's a good condiment for horror films, the loneliness that you feel like if you're isolated. But it's strange because maybe years back we used the factor of being isolated in space, like with an xenomorph, or being isolated in the jungle with a predator, or being isolated in somewhere in the world. But now we are isolated in our own home. Like that is some other sense of horror that it's now being more commonly exposed in films. And that is interesting because I think it's an evolution of our fears, and our language of horror films are always mirroring our self in society.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
interesting. I don't know what you guys were talking about, but I kind of got it from Clara's
Okay.
comment.
Okay.
So I don't know where the conversation started, but yeah, I want to just keep in. First of all, hi, Marcus, Adrian, Clara, Alex. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. And yeah, just gonna chip in very fast because Japanese horror has always been like very intriguing to me, even if I've never been into manga or those kind of like Evangelion, those stories. But I have many friends in Italy that love that. And yeah, I have also a friend that lives there. I've been living in Asia a long time, so I have many friends that live like in Tokyo or whatever, Japan. And for them, like even for the early 2000s, because technology, I think in Japan kind of picked up faster. So the social media, the way people were kind of living alone in these virtual worlds made them feel, that's why there was a very, I don't know, I hope that's a correct data that I'm saying, but there was a very high suicide rate in Japan already 20 years ago. It's because technology was alienating the people from the real life, plus the many hours of work. Many people felt like stressed, overwhelmed by society, and that kind of feeling, the vibe reflected in their, like, especially in the mangas, because obviously with animation they could do more stories with like AI, artificial intelligence, or like, you know, cyberpunk, compared to like the horror movies, like live action, that would be like, you know, The Grudge, Ring. They obviously require less money to be made in animation, those kind of like sci-fi horror stories. So yes, I agree with Clara. Whatever the conversation started from, she had a very good point. So it was nice to drop in as you, Clara, was saying these things. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
Ciao.
Ciao.
You're good. We mostly were talking about.
Oh no, I was saying Christian did
I was going to say
amazing...
like the question.
Sorry.
It's because of the delay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
All right. Well, what I'm trying to say is the question was that kind of started earlier was what would be like a cultural aspect from either like your own culture or like other cultures around the world that you've noticed is just, you know, different, you know, as far as like how other cultures interact with either each other or like, you know, what would be like a viewpoint of a cultural aspect from either like, you know, your own country that would maybe be different from others.
Interesting.
I think that maybe a lot of our reality of being, for example, in our case, a third world country, it's something different. That there are other fears that maybe are deeper from another point of view. Like if I talk about some fears that are now present in some films that I've watched, it's like the amount of loneliness, but at the same time maybe political aspects of time that are represented in some films. Like now I've just filmed a film about a moment where there was a military coup here in Argentina,
Okay.
But it doesn't have anything to do with the military coup that happened here in Argentina. It has to do with another thing that's going on at the same time, and I think that that is something really like um, beautiful, because it's something that it's talking about something horrific that is going on that has nothing to do with the military coup that was so horrific for some people. I don't know how to speak in English right now. Sorry. But yeah, I think that maybe those aspects that show maybe some history point on time maybe shows some of my culture, or maybe I just I'm about to release a film that it's called El Ucumar, that it's a mythical creature from Argentina. But at the same time, this is what I'm saying about the universal language of horror. This Ucumar that was born in the north of Argentina, and it's a mythical creature from the north of Argentina from, I don't know, hundreds of years ago. It's the same creature as Bigfoot, or as other sort of mythical creatures that have to do with Bigfoot, and it's something that it really amazed me because, I mean, I see this creature in all of the cultures with different names. So that is something. Well, here in Argentina, the Bigfoot that you know as Bigfoot is called Ucumar, and maybe it has more a sexual side of him, like he steals women. It's really common here in America, in South America, of monsters stealing women. Like, yes, they steal women and they rape them and they procreate, and that is like a sort of, I think when I read the story about the Lucumar, I thought that how many guys got away with raping women, saying that they were the Kumar that came from the jungle and stole the women, and I was like, fuck, man, this is so disturbing, because Bigfoot didn't rape women. Fuck, why do we have to have a raping monster here? But but maybe that's an aspect of our culture that it's in that film that I believe that will be different from its origins than other Bigfoots from all over the world. That I don't. Yeti is the one that it's from Tibet, isn't it?
Yeah.
El Yeti.
And the abominable snowman and the missing link, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, and that is really interesting, because I thought that there is a monster here in Argentina, but it's the same in all the cultures, and also with fairies, and I think that they are created with their own name, but also with their own background from the culture. I don't know if Bigfoot rapes or the Yeti rapes, but I'm so sorry to tell you that the Kumar rapes. So be careful.
I think the only raping Bigfoot that we have is from the movie Willow Creek. I don't know if anybody saw it.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's a very hard to find Bigfoot movie called Willow Creek from I don't remember the name of the director. I love the guy. He was I don't know. Is anybody of you familiar with Police Academy, the comedy series from the 80s?
Yeah.
The guy that played Zed.
Oh,
The crazy guy with long hair. They was talking like this. He is like a very famous director nowadays, and he made a movie called Willow Creek, where the Bigfoot in that movie like kidnaps women in order to procreate and keep his species going. That's the only exception that I know.
Well, isn't it that like a found footage film?
It is a found footage film.
Yes, I saw it. I really liked it.
Willow Creek. I loved it. It was good.
But that is Bigfoot. That is.
He's a Bigfoot. Yes, he's
so
a Bigfoot.
Bigfoot also rapes. I'm telling you.
That's the only thing that the only Bigfoot that I saw that does that in order to procreate. So, but yeah, I agree with Claire again. Like every country, I think he has his own version of the same monster. And I think like even in horror, like cyclical, like horror, like talks about the same things in the different countries with just different undertones. Like one example, if you see the 70s, every horror movie from the 70s or even action movie was all about revenge. People taking justice in their own hands. You know, they didn't feel safe with society. And, you know, even Italian, the poliziottescos, the spaghetti western, there was like these civilians or cops that got tired about being unable to bring justice and would just like, you know, go on a murder spree. And, you know, even Last House on the Left, Wes Craven, it was like, for example, the 70s, they were about these things. Then the 80s became something else, and then the 90s, now it's all about isolation. I think every country is doing the same. So yeah, I agree with Claire again. The point, like, you know, different cultures, horror always connects them because as much as they have differences, but the underlying topics or monsters they deal with, they come from the same roots of like maybe social anxiety or like, cultural background. Same as in Argentina with all, the raping monsters that you were mentioning.
In Chile, there is a film called Huecufe. I don't
Sí.
know if you. It's a found footage film. Huecufe, again, it's a legend about a monster kidnapping women. But it's more. It's very interesting. I mean, if you have the chance to watch Huecufe.
We'll check it out.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I would say like from the United States standpoint, Bigfoot is probably the biggest myth or it's never been proven yet. So it's very cryptid, and in like the in south of America into Mexico culture, I think is probably would be the closest for North American cryptids.
I love monsters. I think that they are beautiful.
And then
I what do you want me to say? I really,
oh yeah.
I really enjoy monsters. I will definitely watch a film. You just have to tell me that it has a monster in it, and I would just go and watch it. I love them.
Well, I talked to a few people from Australia a while back, and they mentioned that they have one over there called the bunyip, and I'm thinking like, what the hell is a bunyip? Talking about how how in America we have the Yeti, Bigfoot, and then like Loch Ness monster. Well, they have something over there called the bunyip, and so I just think it's interesting how every country or different cultural backgrounds of different parts of the world have their own kind of like cryptid or folklore creature that hasn't been proven if it's real or not, just kind of hearsay, like how people say that they see the UFOs flying around. It's very hard to prove, but yet it makes you wonder if the things that people are saying are true.
I think that it's a human need to try to explain whatever is happening. Sometimes to wash your hands, as Clara just said, but sometimes it's I know, and it's a really harsh truth that you just said, because I think maybe Argentina has a name for it, but I think that a lot of people from all around the world, they just like wash their hands and say it's like, oh, it's a problem that's out there. They don't even talk about it as a problem, right? Like it's something. We didn't do it. Nobody did it. It's like, just happens. Women die. Women are raped. It's not our problem. And it's easier to say the monster did it. And I think like what I was trying to get to is we have a need. That's why we create gods and monsters and ghosts, and maybe there are, maybe they're not, but we need them. We actually need them for us to understand, to give it a purpose or a reason of whatever is happening, because it's easier to put that responsibility that that something is because of something outside of me, instead of taking responsibility into what's happening. And I don't know, it's just hard to, as we grow up. Well, there are two things I'd like to say. Like Mexican culture, we have this, like everybody knows Dia de Muertos, right? It's like the most Mexican thing out there. And like Coco and movies that talk about it are so powerful, because like it's a very nice thing to believe, right? Like it gives you peace after that, and we all want that in a way. Like even if we don't believe in God, we just want like peace. Like I'm agnostic or I'm atheist, so I believe that I die and nothing exists after that. So, but the thing is, I want to believe that I won't be suffering. So if there's nothing, I'm at peace because I don't exist. Or if I believe in spirits and reincarnation or the soul or whatever, I would like to believe that people would think of a place where they meet their loved ones, or coming back to this world and finding their loved ones being their now their parents or their siblings or whatever. So we need this type of understandings. We need there's a very deep necessity of meaning of finding peace. I think that's the bit that's why I'm repeating so much, but it's peace. We need peace because this existence is chaotic, and it's really hard for us to understand it and to process it and to live through it. It takes a lot of personal effort to become better at living it without causing harm to other people, and it's really hard to process it in order for it not to hurt us. So yes, I believe horror is the best way for us to express that, because if we think about comedy or even drama, like most people think like, oh, drama is the most profound and deep way of telling story because you see the characters suffer and whatnot. But the thing about horror, and I truly believe this, is that you can make it seem like it's not deep. Like, oh, it's so funny. They have monsters and monsters don't exist, or they're cutting their arms off. That doesn't happen because there's no spirit that's gonna possess you, and you're not gonna chop your fingers and eat them, right? Christian might understand that. Another.
Yeah. I
So
don't know if Marcus does, but probably
oh
will
yeah, so we all know what we're talking about, and great work, Christian. By the way, I was amazed by all your creativity, like in all of the areas. But we might talk about that later. Just to end the idea, I would like to say, like, yes, the thing about horror is like, since we try to defend ourselves, like psychologically and in a unconscious way, like we try to be like, oh no, that doesn't happen, or ha ha ha, I don't believe in ghosts, ha ha ha, this is not real. So we step apart from it, and by dissociating from the topic, actually what happens psychologically is that we let it go unconscious. So the whatever is going on in the film, we can we don't I mean we can it's we do just actually process it in an unconscious way, and there is nothing you can do about that. Your body feels it, your brain understands it, and no matter what you tell yourself, like, oh no, that doesn't happen, you lived through it, you experienced it, you felt horrified, you felt like it's disgusting, or you felt like it's something like you wouldn't like to live, but you've already experienced it. So you cannot unexperience whatever you just lived through, and that is the power of horror. Like, even if you try not to, you're just there.
You know, I want to just say something that I think that
Right.
going down to horror films and different ways that things are shown, there are maybe more, we say digestive, to have like a metaphor than to show the reality of things. But there is also a genre that is quite interesting, that it's now really like in a very high amount of production right now, especially in Europe, that it's the extreme horror with body horror, like films like Martyrs or Serbian Project, that are for me a new kind of horror that has started like, I don't know, 40 years ago. That it's not the classic horror that we watch, but it's it just shows you the reality of things with no metaphor. What about this shit happening, like torture, raping, but it doesn't show a monster doing it or the metaphor of the thing going on. It just shows you the cruelty of people being kidnapped and tortured and, I don't know, dehumanized. And it's so hot right now. I think there is something like super, it's like a cool genre right now for horror films. Like there's a lot of production and a lot of consumption of this kind of films right now. I think that maybe we have like a more Occidental terrifier sort of story, but then you have like really extreme European films that break you into pieces. And what is really amazing is that sometimes I watch the comments of books or movies of this kind of genre that is okay, I'm going to try to watch it. It's really hard for me to watch these horror films. Like Marty's broke me, and Serbian Project broke me, Human Centipede. There are so many fucked up films. If
Yeah.
you want to be fucked, just go to that genre. But it's really amazing because when I watch the comment section, I think that the truth of reality of the rating of a film is the comment section. Like there you watch and you can know the truth about a film. And it's amazing because I read comments like, this film broke me into pieces. I honestly don't know how to get out of bed. I loved it. I was like, wait, what the fuck? This movie made me so sick. I couldn't watch daylight for a month. I loved it. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? People are loving this sense of feeling like destroyed and your soul broken up and never again being able to smile. But people are consuming this and they're really hungry for the genre. Even now, there are lots of films that are being made of really fucked up subjects, and there is a lot of audience waiting for those films to come up. And this is for me, it's like a new sort of language of film because well, maybe I just discovered it like a couple of years ago, but it started like in the 70s, not earlier than the 70s. I think this is a genre that started like going on in Europe in the 70s. Like maybe the Giallo touched a little bit of this subject, but they came back, and then you have Martyrs, then you have Serbian Project, then you have all these fucked up films. I don't know what it's called, that genre. What it's
Yeah, it's called like European extreme
Torture
horror.
porn.
I mean, torture porn is our advanced version.
You porn.
So
No.
torture porn is the version that is just violence, like stripped of all the like social undertone or the meaning that the directors they want to try to prove with their movies. In Europe, I'm from Italy, Marcus, by the way. I don't know if it was mentioned before. So I was born with like European extremist horror, and as Europeans, we really go deep when it comes to blood or to. Oh, we lost Clara. Clara,
What?
Disappear. You're back. I thought you you were kidnapped by
I
some
just left.
directors
I
in
couldn't
Europe.
hear you anymore.
You were
what the fuck?
kidnapped by the Ukumar.
I just booked a session with my psychologist, like just hearing about these films.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
harsh.
Europeans, we like to go hardcore, as Europe, especially from Italy and France. I think there and Germany, they were the three most extreme countries when it comes to very bloody horror, because we probably are the more hot-blooded and like very maybe more romantic. Also, when it comes to violence and horror and like a relationship, so we like to shock people as a.
Chris, wait. And also, can I just like tell you this? Like, la trata. How do you say la trata? Like the kidnapping
Human
people,
trafficking.
Human trafficking. It's more common seen in Europe, or is it just me that thinks about it? I know it's a lot of human. There's a lot of human trafficking here in Argentina, but I think that the first movies that tell the story about human trafficking are these movies. And they tell stories also about the deep web and torture in the deep web. That is something interesting because it's a mirror of culture.
I think Europe is like a very old continent. So definitely there is like stories that go back way in the past. So I wouldn't know where human trafficking takes place the most. I would say if I had to just like, I don't know, I'm not a cop, I'm not a secret agent, but I would say probably, I don't know, Asia maybe. For me as a European, if I think about human trafficking, something where it's very hardcore, I think probably there. I don't know. But definitely Europe being an old continent, stories. I mean, they were doing human trafficking during the Roman Empire, semi-slave and stuff. So we have this in our past history. There's no need to deny it. So that's why I think like they thought about these topics and stuff. And then I think as Europeans, we really like to put people in front of the ugliness that life can be. And that's why, when you watch movie like Martyrs, like Inside, especially French extremist movies, they're shocking, they're like vile in all sort of ways. Also, I think, I don't know, people are very fascinated with those kind of movies because, and I think Europeans are not afraid of show certain things because everybody in his lifetime have wished to fucking take a person and skin him alive because that person is a piece of shit. And Europeans are not afraid of showing that, fuck that, let's do that shit. And people, when they watch that shit, they are disgusted by it. But deeply inside, there was at least one person in their life that they wanted to do certain things to. And I think Europeans, they like to show that. For me as a filmmaker, though, I'm very extreme. If you've seen like my short film Escalation, I'm very extreme. I like extreme gore. I really like to shock people and make them remember me for what I do. The only thing I do not agree with Europeans, like I love horror for one reason, and that's why the horror movies that I like are the one where the good guys win. Because everybody's life, especially now, is getting more depressed. They feel more lonely. They feel they are like powerless when it comes to life. And they forget that the power to change your life is within you. When you look within your heart and you face life with love, even towards your enemies, you can change your life. You can change people. And so horror movies that are just extreme like those, they kind of give you a bleak image of how life works. In my opinion, the good horror movies, that's why for me, even like a cheesy movie, not cheesy, I love it, but some people think it's like cheese, like, I don't know, like Evil Dead. Ashley Williams. Ashley Williams is like an everyday guy. Is like a douchebag. He's a nobody. But fucking survives against everything. Ellen Ripley, Alien, she's just like a scientist in space, and suddenly she has to survive and save people from the xenomorphs. They're just humans that face unbelievable monsters, but they don't give up. They just fight and they survive, and they're like, fuck that, I'm going down now, I'm going down fighting. And those are the horror movies that I like, that I really love, because you think about like the things that you face in life, and you're like, oh, I'm fucked. And those horror movies, they go to show like humans are powerful. You just be confident, trust in yourself. Come on, you can beat every fucking shit. And even if you fail, if you die trying, shit, at least you tried, man. At
Yeah.
least you tried. Those are the movies that, for me, horror wise, I love them. That's why Escalation, the guys that I play dies in the end. But there is one line that's why Escalation, the whole point is the director's cut is longer, so you get the point better. He's an evil guy in the short film that I did, Marcus. I don't know if you saw it, or I'll send you a link. He's an evil guy, and he gets fucked by this entity. But there is one line in the end when he talks to the entity when he dies. He's like, you're a monster, and the guy is a selfish piece of shit. They say, yes, I'm a monster, but at least I'm not a hypocrite. I accept it, and I die knowing that I'm a monster. Do it and kill me. That was the point of Escalation.
Yeah.
He was an evil guy, but at least he accepted who he was without crying about it. So good people can always do best as long as they trust in themselves. I know, I'm a kind of motivational speaker. I know, but yes. So that's what I like about horror. Like when the good guys, they win and fucking kill the monsters and fucking come on top. When they die in the end, I love Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, but I would like to see their fucking ass kicked for real and no more. Too many sequels. I'm already tired.
Freddy versus Jason, where they're just cut to pieces.
Yeah, Freddy versus Jason. I love
Those are just comedy.
Yes, that's the guilty pleasure comedy splatter.
Yeah.
Let's see if Michael survives the meat cutting thing that the town threw him in the last Halloween film.
Yes, I haven't seen the last Halloween film.
I would just love to say something that something that Clara said and something that Christian said. So Clara said something about some things that we do as a species are inhuman, and Chris is talking about good people. He likes good people winning and bad people getting a punishment, and that's exactly the point of your short film, and I loved it. You present this guy who's a douchebag, and he just gets punished for it, for being an asshole. And I agree. I love the ending. It's like, yeah, in the end, he understood he was an asshole, and the only way he could do better was accepting his punishment. That was it. Now, going back to what Clara said about things being inhuman or human, like you treat a dog humanly, you treat an animal or a friend or someone humanly or inhumanly. I have a really big problem with that word. Not with Clara, but just like the way we use that word. We need to
Do you want to
find
fight? Do you want to fight?
no, 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 no,
Alex,
no, no, no,
dale.
no. Like I have no
Fight.
problem. I don't have a
Get
problem
together.
with you.
Get on the
No,
plane and come
no.
here. Come on.
Okay, I'm allowed to go over there. But like the thing I'm trying to say, like I think as a species we need to find a better word for it, because we we try to make things when they are good, they're so human. Everything we do is because we're humans, because we're great, because we're good. But the thing about horror, especially the horror that Clara was talking about, is horror shows us that we are the monsters. It's not the creature, it's the thing inside of us. The what Chris said, like there's something inside of every one of us who would like to kick someone else's ass, who would like to kill someone else. The thought has crossed our minds once at least. Like we don't act upon it because we're reasonable creatures and we try to control our feelings, we try to control our thoughts, we try to control our impulses. But that also shows a lot about us. Like that's why we need horror, because it also shows what we are afraid of showing, what we're afraid of accepting inside of us. The worst thing a human can do is human. So there's a saying in Mexico that I loved when I was studying acting. Nada de lo humano nos es ajeno. That means nothing that a human can do is far away from you, from any human being. So just because you're human, you just need like the proper conditions to become whatever. Like the worst you can be depends on some conditions, and the best you can be depends on some conditions. Also depends on what you decide to do with those conditions, of course. But like I can assure you, like a nun, right? I won't try to say something. I was looking for like a grandmother.
You're gonna be canceled, man.
Yeah, like
Be
I don't want to
careful.
go into I don't want to go into like religion, but like specifically a person you would think is entirely good, like a grandma. She's a really good grandma. She was a good mom. She's a good grandma. She's a good sister. She was a good daughter. But then a person comes and kills her daughter and her granddaughter, right? So she goes nuts and she kills the guy. So now she is a killer, but she did it because she had a reason, right? So anyone can do that. And we don't know how crazy this woman would go. Like maybe she would not only try to kill him, maybe she would try to peel his flesh off. Maybe she would try to rip the fingernails. Maybe she would do something even worse. I don't know. Like it depends on what we have inside of us, what we've been working about ourselves. And as a species, I think that's the most beautiful part about horror. It shows what we fear about our own selves, but it also helps us understand that we have that and face it. And that's the beauty about what Christian is saying about his character. The whole point about existing here is that we have that chance to understand, to learn, to become. I don't know if I want to say better, but like to change maybe. That's the only continuity in life is change.
Well, talking about
I think we're trying to like find a better moral compass on how we view life, and trying to find our way through these difficult and maybe unknown situations that us as a human race encounter. Anyways, go ahead, Adrian.
I was thinking about the use of art as a cathartic experience, and in the case of horror, it helped us to deal with the subjects that the subject Alex was talking about, and we need to express it. When we repress that, it's worse. We need a way. And yesterday on Friday, we did a podcast with an anthropologist talking about how important art is to deal with all these matters. And I would say, in this case, fantasy genre, it's a genre that take us to dark places, but we need to face them. If we don't, and that's something interesting. If you analyze all the censorship during dictatorships, there's a lot of fiction being censored. In the case of cinema, we are talking about extreme horror films. There's a film called Censor. It's from a British director that deals with censorship during Margaret Thatcher's, when in the 80s, and it shows you that in Italy, I think many of those films were censored. Well, we have the case of Paolo Pasolini that actually he was murdered by I don't know who, but because art has two important functions in society: to express, to create a cathartic experience, and at the same time to accommodate, to say, okay, let's deal with this. If I see a movie and I don't feel uncomfortable, then that movie, it doesn't make sense. It has to move me in some way. Actually, when a movie gets censored, that's a good thing, because it means that this film is saying something that people don't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to chip in, because when I joined the conversation, we briefly, Clara and then Alex, we went into talking that how horror is by many considered like a B genre or something that is really, maybe shitty or doesn't matter. But I just wanted to point out, all of us guys are getting very deep in our conversation. Horror is the genre that brings you to look the deepest inside yourself. So for me, it's the king of the genres, because in horror, you can tell all the stories and see how deep we went. We went from talking about, we're talking about horror movies, and people are like, okay, these guys must be talking about blood, Freddy Krueger, or fucking demons, poltergeist. No, we arrived to a point we are talking about human nature, human feelings and emotions. Horror is a great genre. So I'm so happy to be in this conversation, because and in the future, I hope people are going to understand this. Horror filmmakers, or whoever create these kind of movies, they are the people that go deep, even deeper than a freaking drama. You can make your most cry-baby drama, fucking let me tear it down because I'm seeing all emotional things. But trust me, when you go to horror, you can explore really the deepest side of your soul. And a conversation can go on for hours. So horror filmmakers, they are not afraid of dealing with the dark side of themselves. That's why, as Clara was saying and Alex pointing out, Italian or French or German extremist horror movies, they're the movies that are not afraid of showing you the dark side of the human species, right? What people can do to themselves. And as a horror filmmaker, you can choose to show the ugliness of people, like the Europeans like to do. You can choose, I will choose in my future movies, to show how heroic you can be in the face of unbelievable odds. So horror is really such a broad genre that still can bring you deep inside within whatever life philosophy or whatever soul search you want to do. So long live horror. I'm just surprised, we are talking, and we are horror filmmakers and actors and directors, and Marcus, you must be a super mega horror fan for sure, and we are talking about some deep shit. So to all the people that think horror is stupid genre, shut the fuck up. I just want to say this, just to bring the conversation to something more light and have a laugh.
Well, there is also a discussion that was represented very in a sort of funny show in, I don't know if you saw the last Scream movie, when the girl speaks to Wes. It was Wes, the name of the character.
Scream 5, you mean?
Scream 5, the one where I don't know, Ghostface. But Ghostface says he's West, so it's a Wes Craven.
Wes Craven reference, yeah.
Un guiño. It was really funny because she's, I think it's Jenna Ortega, that started saying that now horror is an elevated horror and it's different from the horror of the 80s. It's true in a way, but I think it's the same things. Told in a way that it's not being scared to go to the funny side. Maybe
yes. Horror has always been elevated.
Yeah,
I mean,
but there is now a sense of not driving into comedy when things get fucked up. Like for example, I saw a film that really vibed within me and resonated, and it really it's just a subject that always resonates with me because I'm a mother, and that's the Babadook.
The Babadook, yes.
It's a film that is made by a woman, and it's really
I
focused
love it.
on the story. Yeah, focused on the story about a mother and a son,
Yeah.
but also the reality of maternity. That it's not all sunshine and we love our children beyond everything. That there is a dark spot there that is being told, and it's sometimes you're in a really dark place, like being a parent, and sometimes you just want to get the fuck out and never come back. Like there is something that maybe people don't say, because there is also this infinite love that pours down of you, and you will sacrifice everything for your kids. But there is also a darkness there, and she was brave enough to speak about this darkness and represent it in a Babadook. I think that there is something in this story, Christian, that it's also going to the bright side of overcoming this, and being the love of a mother. It's stronger than the darkest pulls of the mind and the body. But it's really interesting because not maybe there's another a German film that is called Good Night Mommy that also plays with this. I think there is a remake now.
They're making a remake with Naomi Watts, I think. It's coming up.
Yeah, I saw the German one, and it really broke me. Always this subject that resonates with me, that I think for each person, it's something else that resonates with you, that it will be your biggest fear or your biggest incomodidad, qué sé yo. There's something that terrifies us in real life. In my case, the maternity subject about my relationship with my daughter, that nothing happens to my daughter. But this is a film that it's so amazing how it displays this subject, and in a really cruel way. And it's not afraid of speaking about it, even though it has the metaphor of the Babadook behind them. I think that it's something that could have gone to another place, but really went through the psychological part of it. Maybe it could have had a monster and blood pouring everywhere. But here there is no blood, and there is just this darkness within a house. Everything goes on inside the house. So it is claustrophobic as well. So you have this sense of, fuck, where the fuck is the door? I want to get out of this house. So it's something that I think that it's happening right now, that people are not afraid to go within the darkness of the human soul and our fears and stay there and do not escape from that place. Like, maybe you can have a monster, but even like films like Alien that also resonate within the maternity subject. Like Ripley is a character that is always fighting within the pool of being a mother or not, that is always is present in a subtext in most of the films. And so I think that it's really something interesting that it's displayed. But now we have the ability of some people to go there and stay there in an explicit way, and maybe the monster is something secondary that is going on, but the story is telling something about a truth, about something that maybe if Babadook was not a horror film and it was just a drama about a mother having like a distress with his kid, nobody would have watched it, and it wouldn't have the relevance that it had. Because I think the way you think, Christian, that horror films have this universal way of coming towards all of the places of the earth, and people watching films that someone made in Thailand, and you got the film, and how the fuck did I get the film? I don't know, because I'm a horror fan and just get inside the web and get the shit that I want to watch, and from places from every part of the world. I just want to watch films. I just want to watch good horror films. I don't care where they are done. And I think there is a possibility of getting more connected within the horror genre with other parts of the world than with any other subject genre.
Yeah, I agree, because if you see, like, let's just make a very, I love comedies. I'm a big comedy guy, but comedy doesn't speak to everybody. a comedy in Italy, maybe an American watch it and he doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, the South American comedy, the Chinese watch it and they don't understand it. Chinese comedy, I've been living in China for so many years. I can tell you, like, oh, my foreign friends, they didn't get it. Like, I don't find it funny. But horror is, as you're saying, Clara, is universal. You can talk about like topics. They may have their different nuances according to the country they're coming from. Northern Europe, South America, US, Thailand, Japan. But trust me, everybody, as you're saying, will get the point. Everybody will relate that. And now, I mean, it's a great day and age because it's easier to get projects, you know, see films from Asia, from South America, from like Canada, from like, you know, Africa. Now they're making like, you know, Nigeria, a lot of like horror movies. So it's a genre that speaks to everybody. You can always relate to an horror movie, never mind where it comes from. Most likely you will. So that's why I think as a genre is like really is a powerful genre, is a strong genre. And that's why I always thought like all horror has always been like kind of elevated. Now it's more like allowed to be elevated.
Yeah,
people are kind of like, okay, now we see why horror. Okay, now we get it. So it's not just like Jason Voorhees. Okay, now they're starting. I think like even the Oscars in the future, they're gonna start accepting horror movies in the categories. The time will come. It's already coming. You know, it's just a matter of time, and that's because it's the genre that people, as also Adrian was mentioning, is the art form, like visual art form, moving pictures that people are more afraid
Para
of.
que te vea, tipo, boludo. Pero no entres, boludo. There's like my family just comes naked.
Nice. I don't mind. Should I take my shirt off? I haven't been
Okay, just do it. We can sell this podcast. Everyone, come inside.
Everybody naked, guys.
My family has a thing about not using here. It's very hot here. We are like 40 degrees Celsius, and my family likes to like be naked all the time. Like, okay, they use like a boxer, but they are naked. All of them are naked. Like, if I open the door, it's a porn movie. But yeah, I'm trying like to just grab my family to stay there. But I told you that it was going to break down and somebody was going to come in. And he came naked. So
this podcast is amazing. I love it.
Let's just sell it.
But by the way, guys, I may have to drop out in like 5 minutes.
Right.
Me too.
I have to leave the house. So just in case, I don't know how long this is gonna go. 5 minutes, and I have to.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm just.
I just want to say, like, what I think is interesting with this whole conversation is we're really tapping into like, it's not just like the monsters and like what we see beyond Earth that's terrifying, but more or less like the evil lies within man. And that's where like the origins of evil, or the origins of horror start with just within ourselves. Just looking back at like just what the horror genre has created over, and just how horror is evolving all the time. People are coming up with new and original ideas of horror genre films and in different art forms as well. I just think it's incredible.
Absolutely.
And I love also something that is happening right now that I think is very good for the industry of horror movies, is that there are more and more platforms that are dedicated just for horror films. So we have space, and we have independent films that are indie films. You say independent films, we say here, but indie films that are really like the coolest thing to watch right now in horror genre. Like the A24, like propuesta, ¿cómo digo propuesta? Yo no sé hablar ya. Propuesta.
Proposal?
Proposal, yeah, it's a proposal that A24 does of like having a more visualization about an indie genre of horror films, that it's starting to get really a cool site. But there are also platforms such as Shudder that is now very popular, and people are having the opportunity to watch more films, but also the opportunity for us that make the films to make them, because we have a lot of demand right now. That maybe sometimes, as you say, Christian, that maybe the Oscars didn't want to have a horror film like when I don't know, when Kubrick came out with The Shining. I think it was for an Oscar. The Shining. It's a perfect film. It's a perfect film, and I haven't seen such a perfect film in the 80s as The Shining. So when they said no, The Shining is a horror film, so it's not going to go to the Oscars. I think that right now there is a moment in history where the horror genre is like the hottest topic right now, and people are. I think that it's also connected with the video games, but that is a different story that we can get into in another conversation. But there is
Yeah.
a lot of horror in the video games, Lovecraftian horror video games.
Yes.
Mhm.
So people are consuming, and the new generations are really confronting the old generations, like with this. The romantic genre has almost disappeared. I have brothers and sisters that are 18 years old. One was naked right now in front of you. And so I can tell you that these guys consume a lot of horror video games, and they do not care about romantic comedies. Like I don't think that my youngest brother, has ever seen a romantic comedy. I think that he has never seen a romantic comedy. Like
That's why he goes naked in the house. He doesn't care. He never
maybe
saw
he
romantic.
needs to watch one just to get a shirt
Yeah, I
on.
haven't watched one. Whenever we met,
Uh,
This is gonna go viral.
he needs to watch it. That's why he goes naked around the house. Never mind the podcast. That was fun. Anyway, I agree. There is like a lot of chance for exposure now. So the genre is doing good. The Oscar.
I'm trying to look serious. I just have a naked guy behind me, so I'm trying to say like sort of
Fine.
intelligent stuff. Like
It's
now, I'm so
You know,
cool right
that's why I keep a wall behind me, because my house is full of naked ladies.
Oh my god!
I'm smart.
Why?
Oh,
Yeah, no, see, that's why there
Like
is a wall
family
here,
also.
see? So I don't
But
enter
are they
in
your
your
family, or are they just naked ladies that are over there in your home? That is
You gotta
strange.
take a guy in your house. That's
But
why.
mine
That's
is my brother. I
Ah,
can
your
tell you
brother?
that my brothers and sisters are all in bikinis.
they always say that.
Yeah.
I always say, yeah, that's my sister, and that's also my sister.
It was impossible for me.
And
They
that's my
just come inside. This is not a secret.
I'm joking, guys. I need to bounce. It was loving talking to you,
Bye
Yeah,
bye.
me too.
Marcus. I don't know if Adrian introduced you to me.
I will.
We'll
I have
get
to
to know
leave
each
as
other.
well.
Clara and Alex, we already knew
yes,
each
yes.
other
Thanks
from
for joining,
before.
Christian.
Thank
Chicos,
you,
yo me voy
guys.
también. I'm going to
We'll,
leave
have to
before
we'll
go.
the
definitely
door
have to do this
explodes.
again sometime because the conversation's
Yeah,
gone
we
off.
should do it
Right, right.
again. It's really interesting.
Okay. Oh, Clara is gone. Again. Okay,
Right.
guys. I also have to bounce. It was
All right.
lovely. I'm rushing out. Peace and talk soon again. It was
Hey,
lovely.
take care.
Thanks, Marcus and Adrian, for having us.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Christian.
Bye. Welcome. Bye.
Yeah, like I did want to kind of add a little something to what Clara was saying about horror in the Oscars. I think we are seeing horror just, it's getting there. Like a good example would be like Terrifier 2. This film started as it's an indie horror film that had an Indiegogo, so people could help make the film, and then get to see the film actually make big box office returns. Like an indie film going to major box offices around the country in the United States, and then at one point beating Top Gun Maverick in the box office. I just think that's amazing, and I know that I don't know if this is jokingly or not, but they are going to submit Terrifier 2 to the Oscars, just because it did have it was actually getting to people all around the country. I just the fact that it made it in the box office and was making millions of dollars for an independent horror film is amazing in itself. But seeing that it did catch such a big buzz that we could possibly be seeing them at the Oscars, even if they're in a nomination category.
No, actually, yeah, I'm also very glad for this. Actually, I know the people, some of the people from the production of Terrifier, I haven't had the honor, the pleasure of talking with Leone or David who plays Art, but I'm sure I will soon. Because I said to I'm really glad for them because they have been really struggling, right? The problem with indie directors, especially from horror, they have like they receive in general they are set aside, not only by the industry but also by the cultural, would say, cultural sector, right? Especially the snob ones. They say, "Oh, this is horror, this is indie," and well, that's a good thing, right?
Right, most definitely.
We should do that
Um,
again. We should
you
invite
know,
director. I can contact people from all over the world, and we should do this like this. That would be great.
That was amazing.
yeah,
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 I think. Yeah.
yeah. This is an amazing conversation. I honestly didn't think that we were gonna dive so far into, you know, I mean, I knew we were gonna talk about cultural differences or just, different aspects of different cultures in the horror genre that maybe makes, cultures unique with the horror genre, but I didn't think that, we were going to go really deep on this stuff. So, I mean, this was amazing. And I definitely would like to do something like this again. Um, and, maybe bring some familiar faces back on here again and just have a conversation about the horror genre is really all we need to do. And, you know, just see where we lead on from there.
Well, I'm game.
Meet.
All right, man. All right. Well, we'll have to talk again sometime soon. Just want to say thank you both for coming on the show, and as well as Clara and Christian for coming on the show. This is amazing. And since you guys are sticking around, is there anywhere, real quick, where you would like the fans to like find your social medias or find any merch sites or just to find more information about you and possibly the films that you've worked on?
Oh, well, yeah, El Fanzine Argento is our Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, also TikTok, and we are organizing the third edition of the Etreum Film Festival. The submissions are open in Film Freeware if you want to submit your short film. This festival is going to be not only online, and also there are going to be events in Buenos Aires, Mexico, Bogota, Madrid, Paris, and we'll see which city of Italy.
That's
And
huge.
yeah, last time was in 3 countries. Now it's going to be 6, and we hope then to keep growing. So Etreum Film Fest is on Instagram. There you have the link to the Film Freeware. Also, we add categories in Best Illustration and Best Micro Horror Tale. It's a sci-fi fantasy horror festival, so you can submit in every of the genres we love the most.
And on
Nice,
my
nice,
part,
man.
everyone can find me in Instagram, which is the social network I use the most. You can find me as at Alex Pactor, Alex Pactor, like Alex P Actor. So that's it.
All right. Awesome, guys. Well, yeah, thank you all so much for coming on the show. And for the listeners and the watchers that possibly have this as like their first time watch or listen on the podcast. For more episodes and info on the Root Horde podcast, you can go to linktree.com/Root Horde podcast. That'll show all the links of all the social medias, the YouTube channel, the website, everything. So just check it out, and hopefully you dig the show and want to watch more, because I'm sure we're going to have more episodes like this in the future. So, thank you all, and stay tuned for the next one.
Thanks so much, man. Adrian, thank you so much.